Really troubling is a set of lawsuits being filed so very close to an election that are trying to change the rules of the road in a way that would disenfranchise voters. A lot of this litigation is, quite frankly, not designed to succeed. It's just designed to create confusion and chaos, she added. It will be during this confusion and chaos when the ex-president and his allies will be able to do the most damage to our democracy and to faith in our elections. But Vice President Kamala Harris told our colleague Hallie Jackson that she's ready to take on whatever comes.
Well, let me say this. We've got 2 weeks to go, and I'm very much grounded in the present in terms of the task at hand, and we will deal with election night and the days after as they come, and we have the resources and the expertise and the focus on that as well.
So you have teams ready to go? Is that what you're saying? Are you thinking about that as a possibility?
Of course. This is a person, Donald Trump, who tried to undo a free and fair election, who still denies the will of the people, who incited a violent mob to attack the United States Capitol, and 140 law enforcement officers were attacked. Some were killed. This is a serious matter.
It's where we start the hour with some of that expertise. Voting rights attorney and founder of the site Democracy Docket, Mark Elias. His firm has been retained by the Harris campaign ahead of the election. Sometimes we have to zoom through the things that worry you most. I wanted to sort of go through them and have you explain them to us. So just take me through, sort of your top hotspots.
Yeah, so look, the first thing for people to keep in mind is that people are already voting, and we are seeing the voting process succeed. People are able to get their ballots, are able to return those ballots, and with the exception of the minor hiccups that you normally expect, things are going well. What the first thing we are seeing, which we have talked about for some time, Nicolle, you and I, is a mass effort by Republicans to flood the courts with frivolous litigation to try to sow chaos. But let's be clear. Though there have been a record number of lawsuits filed, though there have been a record number of lawsuits by Republicans filed, they have also suffered a record number of defeats. Just yesterday, they lost a case in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. They lost a case in the Georgia Supreme Court the day before that. The day before that, they lost a case in Michigan. They lost a case last week in Nevada. Their allies lost 3 cases last week in Nevada. They have lost cases throughout this country at an extraordinarily fast clip, and it is proof that the courts are holding. So I worry about to answer your question, I worry about first and foremost that they create a sense of disorder and chaos and threat where people should have confidence in their ability to vote and that their votes will be counted.
I want to read for you, Mark, the new piece of reporting from Bart Gellman in Time magazine this morning. Quote, one significant obstacle for Trump if he tries, as he did in 2020, to arrange for alternative electors in states he loses, is that he would need active collaboration from a governor to throw out a state's popular vote. Reforms to the Electoral Count Act give governors the presumptive power to decide which electors represent their states. 5 of the battleground states this year, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Arizona, have Democratic governors. Just take me through what should give people hope and faith as we head into the final stretch.
Yeah, so 2 things. First of all, on that point, the ultimate certification document that goes from a state to the Congress for the Congress to then count on January 6th is what's called a certificate of ascertainment, and it is signed by the governor of that state. And as he points out, not only have there been structural reforms in the Electoral Count Reform Act, and not only have criminal prosecutions, I think, probably played a deterrent effect on Republicans pulling these shenanigans again. But as he points out, the governors in these battleground states are not election deniers. Even Brian Kemp, who I have my serious disagreements with, he did his duty last time and he signed the certificate of ascertainment. So I think that they have run out of runway there. Also, let's not forget that we've talked a lot about what Donald Trump was able to do on January 6th. That was in part because he was in the White House, and he's not in the White House this time. We've talked about what Mike Pence did that was right. But honestly, let's remember that it will be Kamala Harris now, not Mike Pence, who we will not have to worry about with any kind of false certification. So those are all good news. The other thing that people need to realize is that there are teams of lawyers, myself being one of them, but only one of many, who are right now in court protecting your voting rights. We are prepared to protect an accurate count in the post-election. We are prepared, as we did in 2020, to fight dozens and dozens of lawsuits that Donald Trump may throw at us and make sure they are all defeated so that in the end, every lawful ballot is counted and accurate results are certified. It may not always be pretty day to day in what the news is reporting, but I promise you those fights will take place and we will win.
Okay, so we've dealt with the legal, we've dealt with the state houses. Let's deal with sort of the intangible piece, right? What is happening and what people are doing is that the threat to purge rolls would mean that a vote would not be necessarily legal, and that scares people. We talk about sort of the Republicans' sort of overt voter suppression efforts and then the more subversive ones.
Yeah, so you and I talked about this months ago. I said they had a three-part plan. One is to make it harder to vote. The second was to challenge voters and harass election officials. And the third was to try to monkey with certification. So we've seen some of their voter suppression efforts, and those have been in court and elsewhere. And we are seeing that second part, as we talked about their efforts to challenge voters. And there are different ways they can do that. One is they can try to purge them from the rolls. The other is they can try to challenge them in mass lists. But look, just in the last few days, they have lost these cases. They are losing case after case after case. The state of Texas and the state of Florida are going to federal court right now to try to force the federal government into helping their purge efforts. They're going to lose those cases. The Department of Justice sued Alabama, and Alabama lost that case. The Department of Justice has sued Virginia. Virginia is going to lose that case. The fact is that these efforts by Republicans to purge voters and to challenge voters are going to fail. And what we cannot have people is worry that their vote won't count, because the cynics want you to think that they are going to succeed. The cynics want you to believe that nothing you can do can protect a free and fair election. And I'm here to tell you they are wrong. If you show up to vote, you're going to be, and you're properly registered, you're going to be allowed to vote, and there's going to be people fighting to make sure it's counted.
I think it's important to speak to that that anxiety that people have, because I think it's one of their tools. I mean, it's every study of autocracy deals with how they weaponize hopelessness and anxiety and despair. And so that's a great thing to hear from you after all these years. I want to also, though, ask you to take us through election night. And we won't deal with the hypothetical. Let's deal with what happened already. In 2020, some of the things that came in first allowed Trump to lie about the outcome while it looked good for him. We live in a post-January 6th world, so the violence isn't hypothetical either. Those people may have believed the things that Donald Trump irresponsibly claimed early in the night on election night, and they carried out acts of violence against cops and law enforcement officials on his behalf. Take me through the stages of a possible election night this time.
Yeah, so the first thing to recognize is that we never really know the results on election night. I mean, I remember being up till the very early hours in 2004 waiting for Ohio returns. Obviously, in 2016, it was very, very late before we got the full returns. And in 2020, it took a bit longer because of two things. First, the increased use of mail-in voting. Those ballots tend to get counted a little slower. But the second is the thing you are pointing at, which is that Donald Trump is a liar. And one of the things that the networks are very careful about is to give candidates an opportunity on election night to make their case before states are called and to carry the statements of those candidates. But Donald Trump is a different kind of candidate. Donald Trump is going to lie about the election results. Donald Trump lied about the election results in 2016 after he won by claiming that he'd actually secretly won California. He lied about the election results in 2020. Of course he's going to lie about the election results in 2024. And so we're not likely going to know the outcome of the election on on Tuesday night. It will be Wednesday into Thursday as those ballots are counted, as networks do their due diligence to not prematurely call an election. We saw the problems with that in 2000, where some networks did that. But people should not believe that what Donald Trump is saying the day after the election is any more accurate than the nonsense he spews today. It is going to be just as much nonsense then, and don't listen to it or pay attention to it.
Mark, you mentioned the California lie, and this is something that Bon Hilliard, our excellent reporter on the Trump campaign, reported on this show earlier this week. And he said that 30 of 50 Trump supporters believe his lie about winning California, and it's a state he lost by 5 million votes. What is your degree of concern about how susceptible and accepting of Trump's lies his supporters are?
Yeah, so I'm very worried about that. I mean, look, let's be honest. Donald Trump has lied to his supporters now for 4 years about the outcome of the 2020 election. It has become an article of faith within the Republican Party that every elected official has to lie to their voters about the outcome of the 2020 election. It is the one thing that J.D. Vance could not wiggle around. At the end of the day, Donald Trump could forgive J.D. Vance for just about anything, but he would never forgive him for telling the truth about 2020. And that is a big problem because, as you point out, there is a big segment of the population now that is become accustomed to believing the big lie and is susceptible to hearing further lies. All we can do is create transparency and truth. You know, I created Democracy Docket originally in 2020 as a place to post the pleadings of these cases so that ordinary Americans, whether they be Democrats or Republicans or independents, could go and read these court cases for themselves so that they would not believe the lies that they were being told. You do a tremendous job every day of telling people the truth, of giving them the facts. But we have to be realistic. Donald Trump is going to lie to his supporters, and a lot of them are going to believe it. And let's just hope that when we get past this election and into next year, maybe the Republican Party will start to reckon with the fact that they have built their party on authoritarianism, on a lie. They are right now defending his statements around Hitler and generals. And it is not something we're going to solve in the next few weeks, but it is something as a country we have to address.
Let me ask you about Fox News. I think we learned from the Dominion lawsuit that there was a very frantic effort to get Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, and I guess Laura Ingraham was the third, to come out and issue a joint statement acknowledging Trump's defeat. That they didn't cost them almost $1 billion because the lies that were peddled and then published about the voting systems were lies that they were found liable for airing. I have some good authority that Laura Ingraham is watching right now. What could Fox do to protect democracy on election night?
Look, what I'd say to Laura is, you know better. You know better than what you are spewing. And I understand the commercial interests that Fox has. I understand the pressures that are brought to bear on these hosts. But honestly, you have agency to do the right thing. And every day that you and the other hosts go on TV and lie to your audience and sow doubt and chaos when it is crystal clear to you and everybody else what the truth is, shame on you for that. And so Fox News, you know, they paid a big civil judgment because of some of those lies, but only because of some of those lies. The number of lies that they have told about democracy and the damage they have done is almost incalculable at this point. And, you know, I don't hold out a lot of hope that she or any of the other Fox News hosts will act any more responsibly.
See, this is the difference. And this is probably why I'm constantly disappointed. I always hold out hope. I held out hope that when the Kelly story broke, Sean Hannity and Brian Kilmeade, men I knew when I worked in Republican politics, would say, oh, finally, a red line we can't cross. We couldn't disparage a man who gave his whole life to the United States military, whose own son died serving in the military in Afghanistan, things that we hold ourselves